Good evening, Carl's Conversations everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, and all these groups that we're streaming to right now. God bless you and good evening to you. Welcome back to another episode of Carl's Conversations. This is a safe place to have difficult conversations. We have a very interesting conversation tonight. These two ladies are power brokers and social media. They slay Facebook, and when I throw that microphone to them, you're going to understand why. I'm really excited because tonight we're going to talk about a series that is coming on Facebook. I belong to a group called Enough, and we are a local grassroots organization, but we're growing now. We're spreading to the Carolinas and St. Louis from the Northern Virginia area. And already my number one fan, my wife Tisha, is saying good evening, ladies, and Pastor Daniel Bowman. They are two of the faithful members of Carl's Conversation. We appreciate you. And there's Karen Lindsay. I'm telling you, if you ever needed a ride or die, Karen, you need to know her. We'll tell her story later. Thank you, Karen. But Enough does so many things in the community. You're talking about civic action. You're talking about political information, voter rights, criminal justice, being fit with your body, almost anything that could affect a person socially or legally. Enough has an initiative to deal with it. We are interactive. We work together with leaders in government and clergy all over the local area to help people. And lately, we've gotten into feeding people. It's been a tremendous, tremendous thing. And I'm so very proud of the grassroots work that we're doing. And these two wonderful ladies are about to embark on an Enough live series. From what I understand, I think it's going to be every other Friday evening. They're going to come to you and they're going to be dealing with a multitude of areas of concern, and they're going to talk about it. Now, one thing I like about these two ladies, they are the real deal. I just spent a few minutes with them in studio before we went live, and I'm gonna let you experience it for yourself. So we welcome Miss Angela and Miss Maya. Good evening, ladies. Welcome to Carl's Conversations.
Good evening. Thank you
Good
for having
evening.
us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Well, I'm excited about the Enough Live series. Can you just tell us how you're going to get this thing off of the ground and maybe go into a couple of areas of concern that you want to hit hot on the first issue?
Angela, do you want to take it?
Sure, well, I'll start. So we're really excited about our series because we are given the opportunity to actually have conversations. Just two people who are not doctors, lawyers, or professionals, but who care and who are mothers and are community minded and want to see better. Things happen better. And so our first topics that we'll be covering or we'll be talking about are the minimum wage, the raising of the minimum wage, which is a hot topic in legislation right now, as well as, of course, voting rights. So we're just gonna, we're just gonna talk about what we know and what we want to see. And Maya and I, sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. We'll see.
Oftentimes we don't. And that's okay. We don't have to agree in order to express our opinions, right? She sees it one way, I see it another way, but we'll just speak about things that impact our lives. Sometimes it'll be political, sometimes it'll be social justice, sometimes it'll be, we're speaking on economics. It's just whatever impacts our life in a timely fashion is what we'll be speaking about.
Amen. So listen, I'm excited because we have so many things going on, and I guess we can't go any further without talking about the pink elephant in the room. Our nation is going through a tumultuous transition. We know what happened on January 6th after a fire hot 2020. Dealing with issues of racial justice and criminal justice. I would imagine that somewhere in that first episode, you two wonderful ladies are going to be talking about the big pink elephant in the room. Am I right or wrong?
Um, Honestly, we didn't think to talk about that. I mean, we've talked about it. Everybody's talked about it. So unless something new had come up, we honestly weren't going to tackle that because we only have but so much time. To be quite honest with you, because we could talk about that for like forever because it was ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. But also, it was like, finally, y'all see what we've been telling you. We got two different Americas. Right? That would have been a massacre had that been Black people. Right. So, I mean, we could talk about that now.
I bet we could. Listen,
and
Gary
I mean,
has
that
go
has a
ahead.
lot to do with voting too, right? So
Yes.
I think that, you know, we're sort of solution minded at this point, right? And want to see us like move forward.
Right.
And I think that inherently that's part of our conversation when we talk about, you know, making sure that we as Black people and people, you know, people in general, that democracy is preserved, right?
Yes.
So
I don't think people realize how close we came to seeing democracy really fractured. And I don't think some people, I think we've been lulled to sleep when you look at the attack on voting rights that is happening in our country right now. It's really under attack. And there are so many who are trying so hard to do everything they can to limit access to voting. And that's something that I hope you tackle. Gary Holland has asked, would you talk about opposing viewpoints on certain topics?
Absolutely. We don't agree on everything, right?
Mhm.
We're both women, we're both mothers, and we're both brown. That's kind of where the similarities stop.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll have opposing viewpoints.
right.
That is awesome because I think that's great when you have talk shows like this. I mean, it's great when you have agreement, but it's also great when people approach a topic from a different avenue. I often do panels on Carl Conversations and also on a Heart for the Community initiative, and I purposely I never prep my panelists. As you two know, I didn't prep you. I don't do questions ahead of time. I don't do that on purpose so I can have an organic conversation. I want to see people's real reactions when I ask a question or when we start talking about a topic. And to be honest with you, sometimes I jot down questions that maybe I just want to add in and I never get to them because the conversation just takes off. And I love the organic conversation. And I am kind of anxious to see if you two would take that route or would you stick to a more structured approach. Not saying that either or is better, but I'm just anxious to see what you do with it. And I will be a supporter.
Thank you. I hope so.
So I want to know what's hot. Y'all just gonna shoot from the hip, or do you have something lined up? Come on, y'all, give us something to chomp on.
So as Angela mentioned, we only have but so many minutes. So the first two things that we have lined up to talk about is the $15 an hour minimum wage, which we hope we get to, how that affects people, both in a positive and negative, because some people think it's going to affect them negatively. And then we're going to talk about HR1 and HR4, which are I think they're the two biggest things that are happening right now. You just mentioned how close we came to losing our democracy. We're still right there. We are still right there at the door. And it's either going to go one way or the others, right? Since this year, Republicans have entered 228 bills, at least nationwide, that will limit the voting rights. And it's mostly affecting Black, brown, and poor communities. We're right there. Nothing has changed.
Right.
Every other issue that we have falls to the wayside when it comes, because if you can't vote, you can't change your station in life. You can't affect change for anything. Voting is the one single thing that we all have. We're all equal. I'm just as powerful as Joe Biden right now. When I vote, you take that from me and you got me back in chains, which is exactly what they want.
Yes. This is what I'm talking about. You know what I failed to do, but we're going to do it right now. I want the audience to know who you are just beyond your name tags, Angela and Maya. And Angela, I want to start with you. Just tell the audience a little something about yourself and kind of how you are approaching this particular task with your background professionally and in this vein.
Okay, sure. So I am the mother of two sons. They're 14 and 18, soon to be 19 and 15. So a freshman in high school and a freshman in college. I'm married to a retired Marine, and landed here in Stafford, Virginia, and I work as a IT project manager. Um, and I have a background in library science. I think so. I think the reason why I've gotten involved in this sort of social media thing is I work naturally in the internet and web technology, but also because from my experience as a teacher prior to being a librarian and then being an IT manager, I'm really interested in how information is misused specifically, and propaganda. And so, that's been like sort of my passion for trying to help good information actually be propagated over all the noise that is bad information. So that's where, that's how I got here. And I don't fancy myself like an internet star or anything like that.
But I think you are.
But I think that it's important to, reach people and to have authentic conversations to let people know what's, how to assess sources of information, basically, because I think that that's a big issue nowadays.
All right. Thank you so much. And Miss Maya, give us some background on yourself.
I'm a stay-at-home mom of 5, and I did have a part-time job at the beginning of last year, but obviously due to COVID, I had to leave my place of employment. But my background, I did real estate. I was in property management. I've been a corrections officer, but mostly I've been just paying attention to what goes on in my community, trying to be helpful, and raising my children.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. We have a couple more questions. Will you have guests sometimes? And will there be a way for viewers to submit additional topics in the future?
Yes to both.
And yes.
Absolutely. So I'm not tech
savvy. I just want to say that I think Maya always undersells herself because she's really an activist, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I could tell.
Thank you.
Yeah. So like,
I said that.
Did you say?
I said I pay attention to what's going on in my community.
But you do more than pay attention. You move on things, and she moves people. So I mean, I just have to put that out there. She's
I do.
One of the busiest people I know.
Change. Yeah, I have kids, so
I'm gonna tell you something that I have noticed throughout the busyness of 2020 and how it turned all of us kind of upside down, and many people have exploded on social media, because I believe that we've always thought that media is star driven. Look at how your news networks, your anchors, they always try to turn into stars, right? And most of them have a certain look. But many of us now have shows that are very relevant and very successful, whether it be on the local or regional scene. And of course, some have come into national and international prominence. But there are a lot of very smart people who are observers like we are and have things to say, and people are interested. I'm learning that with my own platform. So I really applaud what you're doing here, because I don't think that it necessarily takes, quote unquote, big names to address the issues that we're having. And who better than two mothers who live in the community, right? And understand what's happening in the community and are affected by what's happening in the community, to get on to a platform and talk about the issues that are happening in, around, and that affect the community. So I applaud you for doing that. But I want to know what was the thing that pushed you all to say, I got to do this? I know for me, it was being kind of lost in the restrictions of COVID, and I couldn't touch my audience. So this was a way to touch and inform. What was your crossing in the road moment to say, I need to go and do this?
Someone said, do you want to do it? Like, that was it. just ask. No, I made a conscious decision back in probably like September that I said, I'm going to say yes to every opportunity that comes in front of me, because 9 times out of 10, I don't get chances to do anything. Just being a stay-at-home mom or being a Black woman, like there's just a lot of opportunities. I don't get asked to do stuff. So if I'm just not turning anything down, I'm going to make more hours in the day. And so I haven't said no.
That is awesome. Same for you, Angela?
So no. So my husband, my muse. She's always so I say no a lot. Not, I mean, maybe because I'm offered opportunities, but I feel like I don't have enough time in the day, right? And I feel like scattered. But I also feel like, to be quite honest with you, I feel like, we get caught up in, especially when you're working, right? You get caught up in that rat race of doing work that really means not much in the end. I mean, when I think about what I do every day and I spend my 40 hours doing, and what it will mean in 5 or 10 years, it's like it will amount to very little. And so I just have realized that the time that I'm not working needs to be something that actually is going to help the world.
Yes.
And so I think that's probably what's inspired me to say yes and not say no, even though my first instinct usually is to say no.
All right, I'm going to read this here because it's going to give our audience a little sharper view into exactly what you're going to be doing. The Enough Live series on LCPM Network. The show launches on March 12th and will be a conversation covering local, regional, state, and national politics, community events and issues, interesting news, and more. The focus is to discuss issues, politics, etc., relevant to our communities, and to share thoughts, suggestions, opinions on how people can become involved, become engaged, and most of all, become aware of situations that we're often misled about via the different talking heads on network news and social media. And this is what I love. Real discussions about real issues with real people. Well, what in the world makes you two so qualified to handle such a distinguished task?
You just said real issues with real people. Meanwhile, my 7-year-old is playing hide and go seek and running around, and she hurt herself and is trying to talk to me, and I'm shaking my head no and muting myself so she could hear me like growling at her. So like, yeah, we're real. Like, this is what happened.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's a qualifier.
My husband just walked in and he looked at me and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm in my head, he's like, "Why are you in here with the light in the middle of the floor?" So yeah, we're real people. We have no false pretenses.
Well, that is a credential of being real. I tell you, I'm excited because I love Enough. I love being a part of this organization. For those who don't know, I am Carl Armstrong. I am the initiative leader for criminal justice. And I am passionate about it because one thing that we saw in 2020 was if nobody understood it before, is how Black and brown people are viewed and treated differently when it comes to the criminal justice system. And it amazes me how people just look over it as if it's nothing, but there have been some things that have happened that make it so obviously clear, not just a criminal justice thing, but when you look at how we look at politics, we talked about it a minute ago, the absolute assault on voting access. I mean, there's so many things. Tomorrow evening, I'm going to have Delegate Candy King on this show, and she's going to give us an update. They're out of session right now on what just happened, and that was her first session. And I'm excited about it because these are things that people need to know. And to be quite honest with you, it has been a few decades since I have been this close with my ear on the street to what's happening. As a teenager, my brother used to drag me to the Chesapeake City Council meetings. I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia. And so as a teenager, I was very in tune, but I kind of, did like most people do, go live life. But now that we're so close through the work of Enough and a few other organizations, we're so close to having our feet and our ears on the street, what's going on. It is so important to have voices who are in tune that can feed us information and perspective this is so, I'm passionate about it because this is so needed. And I'm so glad that we have two down to earth sisters who are going to give it to us and give it to us right. So I have great expectations for you. And I do plan on supporting.
Well, that is fantastic. But, I just have to say, because you mentioned how people, didn't really know what was going on until about George Floyd. And I will just say, because I just can't not say it, if you didn't know, it's because you didn't listen or you didn't care. Because it's not like Black folks that haven't been screaming this for the past 40 years, as far as long as I've been alive. It's not like we haven't had the data that shows the different treatment and how the jails are being filled with our communities. It's not like it's never been out there. It's been out there. You either were not listening or you didn't care.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something. I think, and I'll talk about us, Black and brown people, especially Black people. I think what happened to us is it became our normal, and many of us accepted it. It's almost like being in a bad relationship. And I've been there. And when bad becomes your normal, it doesn't surprise you anymore. It's like the previous administration that just left the office. We weren't surprised when you wake up in the morning and you've seen, there are five tweets that happened when you were asleep that are just absolutely abhorrent. And 30 days into the presidency, it's like, yeah, this is who he is. I mean, not that it's okay, but that's what normal is now. And I will admit, to an extent, I'm ashamed to say it, but it's truth. I was lulled to sleep by the normal. But I'm going to tell you something. When I saw that policeman's knee on Mr. Floyd's neck, my wife and I cried together for 8 consecutive days. We ride to work together, we have lunch together, and we ride home together. 8 days. I stayed off of social media. I was very careful about how I carried myself at work. And I probably really should have took some time off, because had anybody said anything out of the way, I probably would have got myself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And it brought back so many memories of my own experience with all this craziness. And like I said, some wounds that I thought I had healed, they opened up, and then it created new wounds also. And that is just open to a plethora of things, even something like this. And I was interested to know how you would think about this. How we learned Black history in most public schools. Most of it was watered down and really shaped so that it wouldn't be too offensive. And this country really got lulled to sleep. I'm talking about all of us, with not really having a good understanding unless you went to seek it on your own, or unless you went to a HBCU. If you didn't seek it on your own or go to HBCU, a lot of this stuff was just totally, people didn't know about Black codes. They didn't know about what happened during Reconstruction. There are people who told me they really wasn't familiar with Jim Crow. I'm looking like, well, how could you not be familiar with Jim Crow?
Yes.
But this was true. So it took the Great Awakening. And let me tell you something. You, Angela, and you, Maya, and me, Carl, we were a part of the Great Awakening in the United States because we're on platforms that are talking about these things. People that I know have gone to be re-educated. They have read books and have listened to shows like the shows that we put on. And they're walking away with the wigs just blown back, like, oh my God, I didn't know. And now I think that we have a captive audience. So I just go back again to what you're doing with Enough. I think that this series is going to be an integral part of continuing to keep the light shining on the situation. So many times in the past, things happen like what happened to Mr. Floyd. We get upset, we march, and we go sit down. But this time, it's different, because things are happening. And once again, I'm just so proud of what you ladies are doing. And I'm looking for you to do like MC Hammer said. He said, we're going to turn this mother out. Ain't that what he said?
Yes, he did.
That's pretty powerful. That's a powerful testimony.
It is. And, you mentioned, like you said, how Black history is taught in schools. That's the absolute problem, is that It's how Black history is taught in school. It isn't Black history. It is American history. Slavery is American history. Jim Crow is American history. Black codes is American history. All the great, beautiful, amazing things that the colonizers did, they also did abhorrent stuff, but it's all American history. We can't praise one without giving honor to the other. And it's disrespectful and it's intellectually dishonest. And that does need to be changed. We wouldn't need Black History Month if we just taught history. My history is full of positive things and negative things. I'm very proud of a lot of the stuff that I learned in school that is American history that have white faces on it. I'm American. That makes me proud. That's why I married someone in the military. I'm very patriotic. Also, my ancestors were slaves. Let's talk about it.
Right.
We should know, right? We should know that my ancestors were forced to work till their bones separated from the muscle, and the muscle just fell off the bone. That should be a part of history.
Yes. Yes.
So, that's just how I feel.
Yes.
I mean, it's so true. And I mean, I taught, I spent 8 years teaching high school. And I will tell you, it's so complex. Like, we say we need to teach history, and we need to, but the problem is that you have a workforce generationally ignorant. And so you can't just teach it. And first of all, and teach it. You can't, first of all, they can't teach what they don't know.
Right.
And it has to be done in a way that is respectful, which is very hard to do. So, just today I was thinking about an experience I had with my younger son. I think he might have been in like 3rd or 4th grade, and they had a list of people that they could choose to do a report on, and they had the opportunity to dress up as that person. And so, throughout their, early, throughout their education, I've always sort of encouraged them to do Black people, right? Black historical people, so that they could get that historical, do that research on their own too, right? Mm-hmm. So without me prompting, he chose Nat Turner.
Wow.
So yes. And my husband and I didn't know a lot about Nat Turner. So we learned a lot just him doing that project. And you know what? It was traumatic. I have to say that. Yeah. And I think about it later on. I think it was traumatic for him. So even now I think about it, I'm sort of like getting emotional because I dressed my kid up like a slave so that he could go and do that report. Right. And, and I was like, and you can't smile because slaves were not happy. And definitely Nat Turner was not.
No.
No.
And,
but that's how they put them in the history books, though.
Yes. Yeah.
Get out of here.
So he went in and he did a great job. I was told, telling the full story. But since then, he, like we went to the, the National Museum, that African American Museum. He did not want to have anything to do with the slaves. Like, he did Frederick Douglass Slater. He was like, I'm not doing any part of his life, not when he was a slave, And I was like, so the reality is like you can applaud them for putting Nat Turner on that list, right? And for the kids sitting there and for the kids in that class having gotten an education beyond what I got. But look at the price that was paid for my child to have to be one to do that,
Yes.
So I feel like it's a lot more complex, and people and I just hope that people have, and I don't have a lot of faith really in American people to have that kind of depth to really do something authentically and good and actually, revolutionize. But it will require that, and it will require Black people and people of color in general to lead that,
Yeah, but that's why we have voices like yours.
Absolutely.
And once again, this is why I'm so excited. Here's another question, and we're going to wrap here in a minute, but I really want to get to this question. Why do people agree so easily to misinformation? How do you think that this show, the show that you'll be doing, will help people take a step back and do some research? How would you do that?
People are lazy. That's why they agree to misinformation.
I mean, I think some of it is that people are lazy. I think some of it also is that people don't know how to critically think. I think that is a skill. It's something you're not born with, and it also needs to be taught. And I don't think people are getting a good job or getting a good education like in the public school system or with their teachers as far as critically thinking, because they're teaching to the test. They're teaching to the SOLs for Virginia, the MSAs for Maryland, or whatever it is. I also think, and this also goes to what Angela was talking about teaching Black history, 85% of the school books in public schools come from the state of Texas, who just decided to not teach Black history in their schools, or you can opt out or something. I mean, Texas is problematic on its own. We have like there's so many different layers of the problems there, but that's where the majority of all the textbooks come from. Texas. I mean, who in Texas has their finger on the pulse of what happened to my people? I don't know. Like, that's writing the school, right? All the history books, math, but all that stuff is coming from one location, which is crazy to me because there should be diversity of thought. We should have textbooks from, many different locations. So I think that that's one of the reasons why people believe in misinformation. I also truly believe, especially with a certain group of individuals who like to watch certain news channels, you just need that echo chamber. You need that bias confirmation. You need your prejudice to be confirmed for you. People are looking for that sometimes. Maybe they don't even know they're looking for it. So then you just go along with, what you hear and what you see.
Yeah, you answered that. I'll tell you something. This is something I've learned, and I'll be interested to know if you've had a similar experience. Part of the education that has been very needful doesn't really come out of a book. It comes from the bottom of my heart. The slogan for Carl's Conversation, the slogan is a safe place to have difficult conversations. Because one thing that I've learned is that the people who have listened to the show, I can't tell you how many contacts I've had, how many, people who've reached out and said, I listened to your show tonight, and when you guys first started talking, I thought, look at this. These guys are off. But by the time you guys finished, I realized that the issue was me. I never took the time to understand why you feel the way that you feel. And it's not a matter of right and wrong all the time. Sometimes it's a matter of perspective. And I am a firm believer that until we're able to sit down and have a conversation, you just think you know. You don't know. You just think that you know. And I keep going back to it. That's why I'm so excited for what you two are doing. And I really am looking for great things. I think the conversations that you will embark on are going to be great for the audience that you're going to build. And I will definitely be part of it. I want to remind the audience that, listen, next Friday, March 12th, will be the first episode of the Enough live series. These two ladies, Angela and Maya, will be your host. Man, I am anxiously awaiting for what they will bring forth to the community. And, you mess around with Gary, you have 18 jobs. He said, just did a quick search in Google and had zero idea that Texas had such an impact over the years in textbook content. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And here's another thing. Has education become just another debt for Black families, or does it still have merits? She tried to start something. I think that's Sharice.
Yeah, like, you can't ask me that question and then, we're just going to wrap it up.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
It still has its merits.
You're going to unwrap. Go ahead.
It absolutely still has its merits. When people talk about, and I got this from my husband, so like, you can write this on the calendar, whatever day it is, because I'm giving credit to my husband. I don't normally do that. Him and I talked about vocation training for our children versus college, or learning a skill from someone who's already, someone who's like maybe a carpet installer or whatever. And he was explaining to me that those stats of like how you can make good money, $80,000 a year, $90,000 a year, once you get good at your trade and you don't have to go to college, those stats don't pan out when you just look at minority individuals or Black people. So yes, education has its merits, but I'll tell you what, education from an HBCU will pay you back tenfold. So that's what I would say. I would say look for education, but make sure you're getting it from a place that values your child and honors your heritage. PWIs, which are predominantly white institutions, are fantastic, but they're money makers. And I went to more than one PWI, and I wish I had gone to an HBCU. And that's the only place that our children will have education from, because we ain't paying for them to go any other location. And I'm not downing PWIs, because I went to them. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, when you're at that crossroad and you're wondering, because it's hard. Money is hard. College is really ridiculous. I have 3 in college, so I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Look into the HBCU, choose the HBCU, because they have a call that is different. Their calling isn't to make money, right? Their calling was to educate us, because we couldn't go any other place. And so there's just something that's a little bit different. And even, I don't even want to say it, but like, even if your kid weren't to finish, they come away with, how you feed into your community and you give back. They come away with so much more stuff than just a piece of paper and a bill.
There is an experience, a cultural experience that you may not have otherwise. Go ahead, Angela. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. So here's where we probably disagree, Maya and I. So I did go to an HBCU, and I went to PWI, to 2 PWIs. So and I went, yes, I went to Howard, and I absolutely, I'm repping blue right now. I rep Howard. As much as I rep Howard. But we pay taxes. So any state school is your school. So I will say that. So that is your school. It might not be historically Black, and there are historically Black colleges that are state schools that, deserve that respect. But I would say that, we shouldn't feel limited in that respect. And if you get an opportunity, you should always think about how much it costs. It should be, you should look for value out of any school, any experience. You should always look for value. But I do agree that HBCU provides something very special and very needed. And I would also say that about, to be quite honest with you, I would say that about, public schools, K through 12. I think Black people have been running away from each other and from ourselves, believing the hype about what good schools are. And usually good schools are predominantly white. And that's the same lie that's been told, I think, over and over again. And so we're running from ourselves from K through 12 experience. And I think we should stop that as well. One of the best high schools I ever taught at was a predominantly Black high school. And I will, I'll go to bat and tell you that school is way better than the school that my kids went to, which is a predominantly white school.
Wow.
So
here's a question. I go ahead.
Yeah, that's my, my thing about that. So
I appreciate that. This question is so hot, I just have to answer it. Does HBCU education have weight in a PW workplace? Predominantly white workplace.
I think it does. I absolutely think it does. The education is going to be what you make of it, correct? You have to remember, you're still Black. So, if you get the interview, if your name isn't too Black and they call you and you get the interview, you absolutely you have the tools to go on to that interview, to be successful. And I'm not saying you're not going to get those tools anywhere else. I'm just saying there's a unique experience going to an HBCU. There's an affirmation that you get at an HBCU. It is 4 years or more, depending on what you're doing, that you don't have to wonder if your teacher respects you, values you. I'll just give an anecdote. No one's going to, scrawl nigger go home on your dorm room like they did my dorm room door because they didn't want me there, right? Wow. It's just 4 years that I didn't have, maybe I could have gone and not had to deal with that. Or when my suite mates and I, we had a shaving cream fight with our neighbor, and it was funny and it was hilarious and we made a huge mess, and then before dinner we cleaned it all up, and the provost still made me and my roommate, the 2 brown girls, do bathroom duty and clean the bathrooms for the week unless we get kicked out. And my roommate did it. And I refused because I didn't do anything wrong. And I said, if you kick me out, I'm going to the paper. I'll go to the Boston Globe. They're going to love this. Right. I mean, because my mom told me how to act. Right.
Right,
So,
right.
that wouldn't have happened at a HBCU. The RA might have joined in or said, clean that mess up. And that's just it.
That was it.
I'm just saying it's a small fragment of time where you don't have to deal with the stuff you have to deal with in America. Obviously, you have to deal with it when you leave campus, but police aren't going to be called on you because you fell asleep in the commons area like they did. I mean, you're just not going to deal with all that other stuff. So give your kid like 4 years to just be able to, shut that nonsense out. And then you into the workforce. And now there goes the nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree with that. But I think that if you went through a K through 12 experience, you don't need that because you got it in your K through 12 experience of being in a Black community and a Black school. So I think that, a lot of times we coming from these suburban neighborhoods where our kids have had to endure being one of 2 or one of 3 Black kids in a class, then we need them to get that edification in a college experience. But there are kids who are coming through some of the best schools, like I said, are high schools, are Black high schools, Black teachers, Black principals, and they are feeding them with that and giving them that, that edification. So,
but that's not typical because I went to a Black school and everybody was Black, but the administration and the teachers, and that's problematic. So you can't always, you live where you live, you live where you live, right? But sometimes, if you go into a predominantly brown school, it doesn't mean that you're going to still be honored. It doesn't mean that you're going to be respected. I mean, Stafford County, which is where we live, Stafford County Public Schools is majority minority with 85% white teachers.
Yep.
And Black and brown students get sentenced or not sentenced, but they get punished at a different rate than white children. So when you look at the AP and the IB, that's all white kids in those classes. They're not where our kids aren't represented. So I know what you're saying. Like, it's great. I would love for my kids even to have that experience. But even if you go, you might not still get that experience if the administration and the people teaching don't look like you as well.
No, absolutely. And what I'm talking about is when the administration and the teachers do look like you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are moving away from our communities and our neighborhoods where we do have Black teachers and Black administrators. So I absolutely agree with you. That's what you need. That's the key right there,
Mm-hmm. And how do you have to stop moving away? I'm sorry, Carl.
No, it's all right. I want to share something with you. So our youngest daughter is in her sophomore year at Norfolk State University. And when my wife, Tisha, and I took her down there for orientation, of course, Tisha and I are Norfolk State alumni, right? And how things have changed. I was surprised to see the number of white young adults who were at orientation who were going to be students. My first reaction was, what's the game? But then as I began to just take it all in, I said, oh man, this is wonderful. Because some of these Caucasian young brothers and sisters probably have not had the opportunity to be the minority. So they're going to come away with an experience of being a minority. And if that's the only experience they get, that in itself will change how they think. I say, and then they're going to get an education about our culture and about our history that they could have never gotten out of a book. You live in these dorms. You're going to go to these step shows. You're going to go to these football games. You're going to deal with some of these Black professors who carried signs during the civil rights era and who experienced busing. And they're going to close that book sometime and do like this with their neck and tell you what is really going on. And so I said, man, this is awesome. You know what I mean? And just letting that go verbally between us and our audience, ding, 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 ding. It's starting to make the light bulb go off. And that's what I love about platforms like this and subject matter content like this. It is a great sounding bell and a great spotlight on issues that are maybe commonplace to you and I. Mm-hmm. But when others outside of us hear it, is wow, it's so explosive with information, new information. And I'm just loving it. And let me tell you, these comments are off of the chart. So thank you for this audience. And I say, listen, y'all just getting a little teeny taste of what Angela and Maya are going to be doing. Gary said he can't wait till next Friday. And here's another question. How do we fix this through transformation? Sharita wants to know that. How do we fix this?
What is she looking? Is she talking about, maybe having us not leave our communities like Angela was talking about? Because if that's the case, a lot of times our schools, even if we're lucky to have Black and Brown representation, from the top on down, maybe it's funded differently or whatever. That's where your local elections matter more than who's the president, right? Politics are local. The people who run your county, your city, board of supervisors, mayor, city council, whatever it's called, those people affect you so much more. The chief of police, the sheriff, that person affects you so much more. Who's on the school board, those people affect you so much more. It's so much more important to vote down ballot than it is to vote at the top. If I'm being honest with you, you should vote all of it actually. But those down ballots are what changes your life. The down ballot is what lets officers like Derek Chauvin stay in power and keep their knees on our neck. That's how you change it. You get us to, some of us who left the community, and I've been wrestling with this for years with my husband, because we moved to Stafford, and sometimes, I do wish we he stayed in Baltimore and I would be there with him. I do wish that we lived in a more Black neighborhood. But you leave because you want to have the statistics. You want a good school system. You want a safe area. Maybe for him it was closer to work or whatever. So we're not bad people necessarily. It's just looking back, there were things that we could have done differently. But had we had what we needed there, if the police actually got to our homes in 5 minutes instead of 50, right?
Yeah.
If the police actually spoke to me and called me ma'am instead of girl, then maybe I would have stayed in that community. But that doesn't change if we do not vote. Another way we also get it to change is when we register to vote, then we can be called on jury duty, and we don't get out of jury duty because we cannot have, what is it called when you, what is it with the people who, the jury, you have to have a jury of your peers. Well, if you're not registered to vote, you can never make it for jury duty. Right. So we can make the change that we want. We just have to actually do the work.
Yeah. And then once we vote, we have to stay engaged, because a lot of times what we do is we vote and we turn away and we don't even know what the people are doing who are in office. Right. And then we do what Trump voters do. We want to believe, because we voted for them, that they're doing everything in our best interest, and we will defend them till the end, whether we know or not what they actually did, right? So we actually have to continue to stay engaged. And I think that is a hard change for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people are voting, but not a lot of people are staying engaged. And it's
right.
hard because information is so dispersed too. It's hard for people to even know really what's going on nowadays.
Well, I tell you something. Last spring, I was at an NAACP event at the Stafford Courthouse, and Dr. Kisner, who is the Stafford school superintendent, he was there, and he grabbed that bullhorn and he looked us in the face and told us some absolute truth. And I was shocked. And he told us, he said, it was only on the third day when I realized that Stafford Public Schools is racist. Right? He said that now.
Yeah. Well, actually, what he said was, because I was at that event as well.
Okay, wonderful.
That there is remarkable racism in Stafford County schools.
Yep.
But what he was speaking on is a national trend. Stafford County schools follows the national trend. So when I was speaking about how our children aren't represented in Focus, AP, IB, and things of that nature, and when I was speaking on how we're disciplined differently, that's a national trend. It's happening all over. It's not just Stafford County. When I was speaking about the teachers looking one way and the population looking differently, that is also another national trend.
Wow. And we got to do something. I know that he told us that, they were having trouble attracting Black teachers. Number one, because of their reputation for racism. And number two, why would a Black teacher want to come here for less money than what I could make up in Prince William or in Fairfax, less money and put up with this racist crap? Nah, I'm gonna go up the road and be treated better and paid better. And so Of course, that's just one thing, but hey, that's local. It goes back to what you were just saying. That down ballot vote, hey, that's where it is. You want to make an impact, and I'm telling people, show up at the school board meetings, show up at the county board of supervisors meetings. Make sure you do what you got to do to get on the docket, look them in the face, and tell them what enough has been telling them. We will either change your mind or we will most definitely change your seat.
Can I just say, for the school board and then the board of supervisors, right? For Stafford County, at least, it's not like this everywhere, which is probably good. The board of supervisors has to fund the school board. The school board gives their budget, which is a request. They give it to the board of supervisors. For the past 10 years, at least $10 million has been left off of what the school board has asked. That's $100 million that we don't have to pay our teachers, to get buses with AC, to have, better Chromebooks than the little 9-inch things that don't work. I mean, $10 million a year, at least they're not giving in the budget. That's happening because people aren't showing up at the board of supervisors asking for them to fully fund the schools, right? I mean, parents have to be the change that they want. And also, even if you're not a parent, you should care, because good schools mean higher housing markets, right?
Yes.
And the housing market drives the local economy. So if your schools are good, your houses will be worth more and you can make more.
Amen.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
And
Angela.
I think what a lot of times they just use, they use such superficial measures like test scores. And what you have is, I think what happens is, as the school district becomes more Black and brown, you have white people, I mean, just to be honest with you, and people who can afford it, supplementing the school, supplementing their kids' education and paying for their kids' education and keeping their kids in gifted programs and IB and AP, and so that they keep the scores artificially high, but it's not because of necessarily what they're getting in school, right? So, and then, Stafford still, even though they're underfunding their schools, using volunteer. Another thing is, in elementary schools, that the more money they have, the more they use parent volunteer work to augment their teacher workforce, which of course a poor school will not have, because those parents are working and can't do that. And then, so again, and then you have the shaming of those parents who are working that can't do that, right? And the reputation of those schools continually, going down while the school with more money is raised. And then everything is done to keep what they call good schools, keep that population in those good schools. So that's it. That's how racism works. That's how Stafford.
But you want to know another way, which makes me sick, is what is it? U.S. News, I think, is that the rating where everyone always pays attention to high schools or whatever. Do you know that I actually one year, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, so maybe they changed, but I doubt it. I was nice enough. I called corporate. I got to speak with one of the people who explained to me how they break down the test scores. And they look at all the test scores, but what they also do is they look at the average in the state of Virginia. They'll look at the average scores in whatever subject for the minority students, Black students, Asian, everything like that. And then whatever that average is, they look at your county or your high school. And if your high school has Black students that score higher than the average, then you get a higher rating.
Yes, that's true.
So the Black students carry more weight than the white students. So for instance, in Stafford County, Colonial Forge, everyone's always talking about, want my kids to go to Forge, but it's the Black students and the minority students' test scores that prop it up and give it more weight.
Yes. And
Wow.
And the fact that in Stafford, you have a more affluent Black population than you probably have in most other places. So
Absolutely.
It's still affluence that is driving that.
Absolutely.
So.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, this show that you two are going to be hosting is going to be fire.
Well, we didn't talk about anything fun. We're talking.
I know, right?
Well, this is great because this has given the audience just a little tidbit of information of what it's going to be like when we're all together. That angle is just not good either. I'm trying not to hide Maya's face, but
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, because Gary.
but these comments are just coming in, and they're amazing. Thank you, audience, for your comments. There you go.
You know what? Thank you, Carl, because you're like setting the example for us. I really like your format, and
I know
I'm learning a lot just by watching you do what you do. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And now I'm like, oh no, we didn't, maybe we should add another topic in instead of like what we did. You really put us on the spot with that.
But you know what? Once again, I'm gonna tell you what I'm learning, and I tell my wife this all the time. My shtick and this thing that I do is just my own authenticity with my little Southern drawl, with my ebonics, whatever it is, but just to be authentic and have real organic conversation. I don't want something that's all structured and let's just talk. Let disrobe and talk. Take off the representative, take off the mask, and let's just talk. Because if we do that, we're gonna find solutions. Yes, we're gonna get frustrated. Yes, sometimes we're gonna get angry. It's like, how in the world could you think that? But you know what happens when you calm down? When you calm down, you say, oh my God, I never really thought of that before. Man, that was right. Sometimes when I go back and I look at these, because sometimes I miss things because I'm doing production and everything else. But I go back and I listen, I'm like, oh man, that was a great nugget of information. I never thought about that. That never entered my brain. And because it didn't, I approached the situation like this. And that's how I came to the outcome. Well, you know what? The same thing is happening to the people who have oppressed us and some of our Caucasian counterparts who don't believe that they have a problem with racism. They won't believe it if they don't watch shows like ours. And they come away saying, oh my goodness, I never knew that. You see? So that's just my thing. So I appreciate your recognition of that, but that's my thing. And if I make it or don't make it, that's what it's going to be.
Amen to that.
That's right. Even when the checks start coming, I gotta be me. I gotta be me. There's authenticity.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna tell you something that I've learned about our young people. I am a minister of the gospel. Our generation and before is almost like the church had to have a perfect pastor. And we wanted perfection in our leaders.
Mhm.
This generation coming behind us, I'm gonna tell you something I figured out about them. They will take an imperfect pastor and an imperfect leader as long as they're honest, transparent, and authentic. Once they smell the least little bit of phoniness, they gonna leave you hanging. That's where they draw the line. And I'm hoping that all that's happening in our nation and in our church is going to make us turn back to a time where we feel in our own skin, being transparent, being honest, and just telling the doggone truth. And ladies, I am looking forward to your brand of the doggone truth starting next Friday, March 12th. And it's going to be on the LCPM. I think I said that right. The LCPM network.
Mhm.
Frenchie, if I didn't say that right, I want you to correct me. Frenchie, she is awesome. Have y'all worked with her yet?
Yes, she's helping.
Man,
Absolutely.
that's quiet power there. She's not going to talk so much, but she knows what she's doing. And that platform is going to be awesome. And I think that y'all are going to be the perfect paint on her canvas. This is going to, I'm telling you, I'm excited.
We are.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to wrap right here, audience. I know that you have enjoyed them. It is obvious by your comments. And I just want to give these ladies an opportunity as we close. Angela, I want you to go first. And then you, Maya, if there's something that maybe we didn't cover, or maybe something you just want to tell the audience before we go, I give you a few moments. So, Angela, the microphone is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you for having us on here. And one of the things that really drove me to enough into this opportunity was the recent police shooting of Xavier Hill, who, like my son, graduated from Stafford County School in 2020. And that is one of the things that one of the issues we will definitely tackle. So, Carl, I appreciate your interest in criminal justice. But that is something that has touched my heart. And I want us to continue to pray for that family and the people who knew and loved Xavier Hill, and for us to continue to fight for justice for him. Even though the grand jury has already, released their statement, there's still more for us to do.
Thank you so much, Angela. Really appreciate that. Miss Maya.
I agree with everything Angela said. I think it's time that we get civilian review boards, independent review boards all through the state of Virginia. I think that training on officers needs to be different, but I also think the hiring practices need to be different. And that's something that I hope we get to talk and speak about, maybe get some officers or some people to come talk with us about that. I think that the most important thing is just for us regular folk to maintain just our activism, just to continue to ask questions and to hold people accountable. And then we can start to see this country finally live up to what it says it is.
All right, man, I can't wait. Thank you very much, audience. I'll tell you again. So it's going to be the Enough Live series starting next Friday evening, March 12th. And I think you're going on at 7 p.m. And from what I understand, I think it's going to be every other Friday. These two ladies, Miss Angela and Miss Maya, they're going to paint a picture on Miss Princess's canvas that we're all going to be able to appreciate. As I'm trying to tell you now, this is what I see. My. It's like I heard a preacher one time say, he says, my mother taught me the King's English. But when it's time to shuck corn, it's time to shuck corn. And y'all going to shuck some corn next Friday.
Well, Carl, I'm gonna need you to I'm gonna have to record this, like all the nice things you say. I need to play that every morning. Daily affirmations from Carl when I wake up in the morning, and I'll just feel so good about myself.
You know what? You may have just given me an idea for a new series. So if you see daily affirmations from Carl's Conversation tomorrow morning, I'll tag you on it.
Thank you. I'll be right there.
We'll be there.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. To our audience, thank you. I certainly love you and I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Until next time, may God bless you and may heaven smile upon you. Bye-bye.